Hey everyone, it's Mikki here. You're listening to Wikipedia, and this week on the podcast, I speak to Dane Fuller. Dane Fuller is a New Zealand-based nutritionist, exercise scientist, former lecturer, author and founder of Fuller Foods. With a background in competitive rowing and a passion for performance, Dane has dedicated his career to helping people fuel better, move more, and live healthier. And Dane and I talk a lot about that athlete mindset. He'd also designed the Eat Fit program, which is an evidence-based health and fitness system so effective it was licensed by a global multinational for their online TV series. And nowadays, Dane's coaching helps clients improve energy, manage weight, and enhance sport performance. And Dane has been featured across TV, radio, and print media, and has worked with celebrities, athletes, and everyday individuals alike. His work is grounded in human nutrition, exercise science, and behaviour change principles, including neuro-linguistic programming, which we chat about in our conversation. As mentioned, Dane is also the founder of Fuller Foods, a line of fast, protein-rich oats designed to support satiety and sustained energy. Dane's mission is to make real, effective nutrition accessible for all. I think you guys are really going to love this chat. I've got a link to eatfullerfood.com in the show notes. Before we jump into the interview, I would like to remind you that the best way to support this podcast is to hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast listening platform. And share with a mate. That helps increase the visibility of Wikipedia in amongst literally thousands of other podcasts out there. So more people get the opportunity to hear from guests that I have on the show, including Dane Fuller. All right, team, enjoy this conversation. Dane Fuller, thank you so much for taking time to join me this morning on Wikipedia. And I was saying to you how excited I am to try your Fuller Oats, which of course we're going to talk about, but I do want to dive a little bit into you and your background as well, obviously. My mate, Rob Dallymore, good friend, he is how I found Fuller Oats, because he started talking about them on social. I'm like, what are these oats? I'm like, oh, it's Dane. And of course, you're a name that just goes way back for me, because I think we must have studied around the same time or something like that.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So for those who don't know you, Dane, can you take us back, just sort of like give us a bit of your background? You sort of started growing up in a fish and chip shop, which would have been a dream for anyone in New Zealand. And now you're a weight loss nutritionist and a product founder, super passionate about health and wellbeing.
Yeah, it certainly seems like a pretty weird journey when you think of it like that. Like my upbringing was very unhealthy, I would say. You know, my parents had not one but two fish and chip shops, and so I grew up in one when I was very young. And then when I was older and at university, my parents put another fish and chip shop. So I actually worked in that one. So I went from someone who was serving fish and chips to then someone who was advising people not to eat these fish and chips.
Now, okay, did you enjoy fish and chips?
Well, when you live in a situation where you're eating them all the time, you don't. Like, you just get sick of the smell of them and the fattiness and the So after a while, no, you don't want to eat them anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. I interrupted. Did that actually spark? Where did your interest in nutrition come from?
It came through exercise first, and so I was always passionate about sport, and I really wanted to achieve at a really high level with sport. And I never had any interest in going to university, and I was really surprised to learn to find out that I could learn about exercise science at university. It just didn't occur to me. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. I really want to do that. And so that's what took me to university. And then when I got there and I started to learn about sports science and I became really interested in that, then, you know, nutrition was the next thing that I wanted to learn more about. So it was through that pathway, through this interest in sport and achieving sport, and then understanding more about nutrition and how important that was. And so I want to learn more about that.
Yeah, because we were just chatting before I hit record. You're rowing now. That was your sort of primary sport, was it, sort of through university?
Through university, yeah. And even through school. So I rowed consistently through school. So They have something in New Zealand called the Māori Cup. So I went to 4 of those. So right through school, went to university, and then got back into rowing at university. And I became a lightweight at university and took it up really seriously so that I could, I became a New Zealand lightweight rowing champion. And we were rowing really hard, rowing twice a day, early mornings, evenings, and working through the holidays as well. So it took a lot out of me. And that's when I realised how important my nutrition was, that I needed to change and do a lot better than what I was.
And how would you have described I know this is several years now, so you're probably having to think back quite like a while, but how would you have described your nutrition prior to having that light bulb moment? And what kind of shifts did you make?
There's a couple of light bulb moments. So, one was about for my sport, wanting to improve in that, and my nutrition prior to that was very poor. It was very low in fibre. It was very highly processed food, and it was really unhealthy. Like, things like we just ate anything, pies, cookies, chips, soft drink. I had rice bubbles and canned peaches for breakfast, and that's all I would eat. I wouldn't eat anything else for a very long time. And so it wasn't until I realised that type of breakfast wasn't going to sustain me for my rowing, particularly when I became a lightweight. I needed to have a really good, solid breakfast. It was going to keep me full for a long period of time, which is when I changed over to an oat-based breakfast. So that was sort of first change. And then my diet still wasn't fantastic. There was a lot of foods I still wouldn't eat. I didn't eat a lot of vegetables or whole grains and these types of foods. And then when I became a nutritionist, it was really important to me that I wasn't a hypocrite. And I saw a lot of other people who were, like I had a job with the Heart Foundation for a short period of time. And that's one thing that changed my own personal diet much more. That was seeing other people who were advising others on public health nutrition, and they themselves were overweight and unhealthy, and I saw what they would eat, and I just couldn't do that. So that pushed me even further. Once I started advising people as nutritionists, then I wasn't going to be a hypocrite. So I started to learn to like some of these foods that I hated.
Isn't that interesting? You learned to like it. And I talk to people a lot, and you must as well, Dane, in your career, about that. Diet is a bit of a skill as well. Like, and tastes change and you change as you grow. So a lot of people come in with these, like, I'm too stubborn to change my diet. Oh no, I never eat that. And it's like, well, I mean, you right now might not, but down the line, like, these are things that can be changed. And I think a lot of people think that these are inherent traits rather than actually quite malleable.
Yeah, of course. And if we want to create change, then we have to have as many options as possible. And the more we narrow those options to only eating or only exercising the types of things that we enjoy doing, then the less options we have, the more likely that we're going to be knocked over at some stage, because it's not a very stable base to work from. But the wider base you have, with the more options you have, the more flexible you can be, the more malleable you can be, and you can make decisions at difficult times that are going to still help you to continue on and change. And so one of the things I really spoke to my clients about was, about learning to like. You don't have to love foods. And often, people's excuses, well, I don't like that. You give them some advice and say, well, I don't like that. And I say, well, what would happen if you ate it? And what would happen if you ate broccoli?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's so many different reasons of why they may not like a certain food. It's not just that I don't like it. It could be I don't like the texture, I don't like the taste, or I don't like it cold, or I don't like it hot. So, just in one food, there's so many different ways that food can be prepared to make it, more accessible to you, so that you may learn to like it over time.
Yeah, no, 100%. And of course, you've got a background in exercise science, nutrition. And it also neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah.
How has that sort of shaped how you think about food and how you talk to your clients about it?
It's become a number one thing for me. So I started nutrition I started exercise because it was something I was passionate about. I started nutrition because I knew there was something that was really important. You couldn't have one without the other. And then when I began consulting with clients, I soon realized that, it's not just about telling people what to do. And I remember my very first clients when I started, and I had all this information inside my head that I'd learned, and I just thought that I had the key to success. And I just had to just tell them what to do, just dump this information on them. It soon became apparent that just telling people what to do isn't enough. And I would say all people know enough, particularly nowadays with access to the internet, that they can change. They know the basics and they know enough to change. So I wanted to know how I could make that change happen. I wanted to be a coach to these people, and I want to take responsibility for their outcome. I just didn't want to be there, pushing people and telling people what to do. I wanted to get inside their mind and rearrange the furniture. I wanted to make sure that any changes that we made were going to be lifelong changes, because that was a success that I was really wanting to see. And that was really important for me.
Yeah. And did that influence, I guess, your direction as well, not from a consultant, but with your business and things like that, and the development of your product, like in terms of what was possible? Like, I'm curious about because obviously it's a growth behavior to look at something like NLP, like it's an unusual, it's so obviously aligned with the work that we do, yet it's not an obvious, it's not an obvious thing that someone might put with an athletic man who is a nutritionist. I don't know, it almost seems like it's unusual, I suppose, is what I'm saying. So you've got a growth mindset, Dane. I love it. How did that change for your product?
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I'll do anything if it's unusual. If it's usual and everyone's doing it, then it's not going to set me apart. But if I can find something that is unusual, that's going to be different, and that's what I'll chase. And even if it's a bit weird, like NLP certainly was a bit weird. There's some things that they teach that are pretty unusual and pretty crazy, but that's cool. And you can pick up what's important and you can leave some of the other stuff behind. And I was definitely willing to do that if it meant that I could make a difference to my clients.
I talk to people about this, and you must all of the time as well, is that the diet and exercise stuff, it's simple, but the hang-ups or the brick walls that people have really are to do with that mindset piece. So it's just so valuable.
You're right. It is simple and it's complicated, and our job is to make it as simple as possible. And one of those avenues which we spoke about before is making sure that people have enough options so that they can pick a path through a challenge by the different options that we've given them to do that. But it's also difficult in the sense that, again, knowing what to choose is sometimes not enough. And it's just change that people need to be able to create so that they can live a life which is going to result in them becoming leaner and healthier. And that's a different mindset to a weight loss mindset, which people are handcuffed to and have been for such a long period of time.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the older that we get, the more the understanding the why is so important, right? Like, because fitting into your genes is actually fine. Like, you can have that as a goal, but that's probably not enough when the shit hits the fan and things go south. Like, those aesthetic goals aren't actually enough to keep you in the game. So I really love that you focus on that, the bigger picture, I suppose, and get people to understand it.
Yeah. And, fitting with those genes, that can be one thing. And there has to be, a lot of other things alongside that. And so, I talk to people about, painting the picture about what it is that they're moving towards. And often weight loss is about what people are moving away from. They don't want to feel a certain way. They don't want to look a certain way. And they're triggered by certain events or images that they've seen in their past, which they then paint a negative picture about themselves and who they are and what they're capable of. And so it's really important that, with the conversations that we have with our clients, that we can get them, we don't get to do it, but we get them to repaint that picture of the future of what they're moving towards. And so it becomes, rather than an away from motivation, something that they're moving towards, because it's much more powerful when things get really difficult. What is it that they are willing to sacrifice to achieve that type of life, the type of life that they want to live, and the lifestyle that's required to attain that.
Amazing. I love it, Dane. Talk about Fuller for Longer and your sort of like I think you've mentioned something about like a really simple breakfast formula that obviously you talked about a huge difference that it made for you. And for you, it made it so impactful because it kept you fuller for longer and you know, and it just made a difference to your overall sort of energy and performance outcome. But I don't think, and if it's all right if we sort of go into this, but it's not just professional for you right now. Like there is a more sort of personal story tied to your sort of breakfast product. And I understand that it's helped your son with his Prader-Willi. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, that's right. So my son has Prader-Willi syndrome. And so for those of you that don't know what Prader-Willi syndrome is, one of the main effects of Prader-Willi syndrome is that people who have it, particularly as they get older, they don't have the ability to feel full. And so they are constantly ravenous. And when I explain this to people, sometimes, you know, they think that they feel like that as well. I'm always hungry. But it's not hunger, it's ravenous. And, you know, it's like, for example, if you were on an island, deserted island, and there was no food there, and you hadn't eaten for days, whole week, you're ravenous and you'll eat anything. And so people with Prader-Willi syndrome, they feel like that, and they feel like that so bad that they will go through a trash bin and they will eat whatever's in that trash bin because they are so hungry, just like you would do if you had to survive. And you would find whatever you could and you would eat it. But they won't stop, and they can eat themselves to death. But they will become morbidly obese and can die in their 20s and 30s. And so it's a condition that is serious in that respect when it comes around appetite, but also they have much less muscle mass, so around 70% of muscle mass of the average person. And so my son, he's now 10 years old, he's quite fine. Like, he doesn't have much muscle on him. He's quite inactive. His depth perception is quite poor. So, you know, when he goes down steps, he's very cautious. He can't really play on the playground and, you know, swing from the bars and those types of things. So he doesn't develop those muscles. And his activity is also very low because he has a low level of muscle mass. His metabolic rate is also low. He doesn't burn a lot of calories. And so having a child like that with Prader-Willi syndrome means that our only way to help him is that we all eat a healthy diet, and he eats a healthy diet. And the first thing that he starts the day with, and has done since he was very young, you know, the first food that he was eating, and my other children as well, you know, was an oat-based breakfast. And, you know, the oats are just so good because they keep them full for a really long time, and they give them the nutrition and the energy that they need.
Dane, how did you discover that he had Prader-Willi? Like what? So it's sort of like I hope it's all right I asked, but I'm just super curious as to like what the process would have, like how it sort of started and the discovery actually.
Yeah, well, it's a tough battle. You know, you're in the hospital and, you know, you have a child that, you know, is born with obvious difficulties, so obvious that, you know, it was obvious that something was wrong. You know, the doctors, when they hold your baby up, they're supposed to be moving around and crying. Well, our son wasn't. He was like a floppy fish that was just arched back, and they lifted him up like this. There was no reflex for him to, you know, to move his body. So, you know, they had to go into NICU, and there was a period for a number of weeks where they were trying to find out what was wrong and what syndrome he had. And, you know, they finally told us before Christmas, and we were able to come home for Christmas, which was great.
Yeah.
You know, there was Prader-Willi syndrome. But it's sad for me now, but at the time, you know, my reaction when they told me that, because they gave us a couple of options. One was a syndrome which was awful and he wouldn't live long. The second one was Prader-Willi. Now, I learned about Prader-Willi and I'm like, man, I can do Prader-Willi.
Yeah.
You know, exercise and nutrition and fullness. I can cope with this. So, you know, I had a fist pump in that room when the doctors came back and told us the diagnosis. I'm sure they were surprised by it, but out of everything that was going to come my way, I can take that on.
Yeah. Hey, and before we get on to Fuller for Longer, I do are you do the GLP drugs, are they going to be helpful for your son moving forward? Do you know, with the appetite suppression?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Just for the mechanism that, it's a complex. I don't understand fully. This hunger that is unable to be satiated. I know that it's due to ghrelin not being released, and then also not having the receptors for ghrelin. So I don't think the new medication will help. They haven't really been able to find anything that can help so much with the hunger at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, I'm clearly ignorant as well. I know I haven't looked into Prader-Willi and to see if they've, to look at the mechanisms by the hunger, but that was the first thing I thought, I wonder. But I mean, and hey, look, it's early days, I suppose, for your son who's 10, and, there's probably a lot of advancement along the ways with that. So, okay, I've got to say that it's got to be one of the toughest things to bring something like your product to market in a little place like New Zealand, and to have the success that you've had to date. So, talk me through what took you from oats are a good food to I'm going to create a product, and then also what the process was to actually getting it to market. I'm super curious.
Well, yeah, it might be tough to do it here in New Zealand, but I tell you what, it's a hell of a lot more difficult to do it in the US. And that's where I launched it. So I developed this product and I launched it in the US. And the reason I did that was because I knew it was going to be difficult, but I was selling to a market that was already educated. They already knew about overnight oats. And so I knew I could get some really good feedback there. And the mechanism that I would get that feedback would be through Amazon. So, buyers on Amazon, they can post their feedback really quickly and really harshly. And it's a really good way to just get that feedback from the market and then develop the product. So that's what I did. I developed the product over there. I got feedback. I had a lot of influencers and sports people that would give me feedback as well. So I would send them lots of product out. They would get back in touch with me and let me know, their thoughts on the product. So it was much easier for me to do that in the US in terms of developing the product and making some changes. So once I was able to do that, then I could bring the product back here in New Zealand, get manufacturing done here in New Zealand, and then get it into the supermarkets. And so it took a long time and it cost me a lot of money, but I really wanted to make sure that I was able to get the product to the point of what the customer wanted, and just to get that feedback, refine it before I was ready to put it in the market here.
And what sets it apart from other oat products?
One thing is my focus on making a product which makes people feel fuller. And so we've spoken about that, but it was really one of the main tenets of my practice as a nutritionist to help people with weight loss, was that we could help them to feel fuller. And that's not just about what they eat, but about how they eat and when they eat and why they eat. So it was like a whole encompassing thing. But the main point was to make sure that, whatever people ate, it helped them to be fuller, so therefore that they are in a much better place to make good decisions. And then that's how we really made some change. And so, one of the main things was breakfast. And then so if I wanted to create a breakfast that's going to be, to keep people fuller, then my breakfast I have now is focused on that. So if we look at the particles, for example, the size of the particles in the product, they are bigger and are whole. So a lot of people don't realize this, but, for example, if you have an instant oats, for example, it's really fine. If you think of the fine grains of an instant oats, the same as like a soup. You could buy like one of those 60-second soup things mixed, like a dry powder, and put hot water into it. Stuff like that doesn't keep you full. You got to think about the particle size of the food, not just the food itself. So that's one reason. We've got, whole pieces of fruit in there and, larger pieces of oats, so they sit in your belly for a longer period of time. Also protein. And so there's a difference between the different types of proteins that might be in other products. And so whey is very common because it's much cheaper. But whey is a faster digesting protein. And so I use a mix of higher casein. So casein is known as a slow release protein. So I have that in there. And then I've got, seeds in there. I've got chia. And so chia swells up and it means that, everything is digested much slower. I've got cinnamon in two of my flavors. So all these things, they all mix together to make a meal which is slow releasing. And that was what was really important for me. So something that's really low in sugar, really long and slow to digest. And, really importantly, it has to taste nice. And so, my product, I don't think I'm biased because the feedback from everyone else I get is it's delicious. You can compare it to lots of other products out there who don't take the same approach to whole foods and a real natural flavour. And I haven't steered on the cost on that, and it tastes really good.
And so when you were getting the feedback on Amazon, did you have to develop a bit of a thick skin? I don't know, or probably actually you got quite a lot of really positive, helpful critiques. But I guess, I think there's always, whenever you bring something new to market, be it, and you've done this, we're talking about your physical product now here, of course, but you've had quite a successful, and I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, but I'm pretty sure you had a successful weight loss program that was actually picked up by some sort of international, so you've sort of been out there for a while. So I suppose you've always had to have a bit of a thick skin. But yeah, how was that process for you? You mentioned it was part of it, but how did that go?
I want to win. So if that means that, I look like an idiot sometimes, or, people are critical of me, then I don't care. So I'll do what's required to win for if it's with my clients, to do what I need to do to help them. Sometimes, the types of questions that I would ask them could be pretty weird, but if I want to get the result that I want, then sometimes I might have to push them in directions that they're not used to. And then when it comes to myself as well, I'll do things that are uncomfortable. And if that means that I get critical feedback about the product or things that I've developed that haven't been as good as what they could be, then I know that's what I have to go through. And one thing that's inspiring for me is that you have to go through this process of starting. You can't just wait for things to be perfect. If you do, you're never going to get anywhere. And so if I'm getting negative feedback, then I know that I've started. And I've heard someone say that if you don't get negative feedback about something you've created, then you haven't done it right. You should be able to look back and be embarrassed of what you've created, and embarrassed of what you used to say or what you used to do, to know that you're advancing and you're getting better and better. And so, and I'm continually looking for feedback. I'll send my product out, to people like you, for example, I'll send it out and I ask for just honest feedback. Tell me what I can do better. Because the other thing that's important for me is that it's not me. It's not about me. I'm creating this for other people, and I need to know what I can do to make it better. And if I'm coaching other people, then I need to know what I can do to make it better for them. Not about how I feel, what I can do for them.
That, Dane, you've got a real, and I'm unsurprised by this, a very athlete mindset around it. Actually, that's one
thing I want to bring up, actually. And with clients, my transition to working with clients is that I wanted to treat them like athletes. I wanted to make sure they had a mindset of an athlete, because that would help them to be successful. And that means that we need to be able to hold them accountable just like we would for athletes. And I think often when we're dealing with people as nutritionists and trying to help them change, we can be, too much of the cotton wool and be very gentle and, be too concerned about what they might think of us potentially, or that we might lose them as a client. But if I want to get to a certain result, I know that if I can come at them from the mindset of being their coach and that they are my athletes, then I'm going to make sure that they have some really good solid goals, and those goals won't allow for excuses. We can make change along the way.
Yeah, no, I love that, Dane. And I don't, we've never discussed this, but I do feel that in the nutrition space, we've gotten a little bit soft. If I look at public health messaging or what you see on social media and stuff like that about there's no good or bad foods. And look, we, obviously we're aligned on some things and we just have differences of opinions on others, which is, differences make things interesting. But ultimately, you want to achieve the best outcomes for your clients and the people you work with. And just, we have just, I think, wrapped a little bit in cotton wool. There's something about how things are portrayed these days that I get a bit of backlash about that, actually. But hey, I'm here for it, because it's just not helpful at all to anyone if you're like, no, it's fine, it's all good. It's like, actually, no, it's not.
Yeah, good on you. I've seen some of your posts, where you call it out, and I applaud you for that, because we don't want to be average. Who wants to be average? Particularly people that have an interest in improving their health, then they don't want to be average. And I tell you what, the average is not good.
No.
The average health in society is not good. And, some of the advice that's given to be average, I don't want to be average. No one wants to be average. You want to be better than that.
Yeah, 100%. So now I'm interested to know that, so you've talked through the process of the product itself, but what about making a product that people will actually stick with? Do you think that the stuff that you've that you've learned through the NLP and just actually your athlete mindset, how has that influenced the products that you've made?
Yeah, it's really important, because it's all very well making something perfect, but if people don't use it, it doesn't make any difference. And so you need to try and reduce the friction, particularly when it comes to changing habits. Breakfast for most people, me included, is like a routine thing that we do every day. So to change that habit can be really difficult, particularly with a product like mine, where it's overnight oats. And so the idea is that you make it the night before, so it's ready in the morning. And so you really need to be able to have a reminder to try and start this new habit and change what you're doing previously. Mix it the night before, put it in the fridge, and then it's ready in the morning. And so I had to make that as easy as possible so that people could change what they're currently doing. And so one thing I thought about was when you want to get your clients to start exercising, and you want to do it again, you want to make it as easy as possible for them. So let's do it in the morning before any other interruptions come the way. Then one of the first pieces of advice that you might give that client is get your shoes out the night before, put them beside your bed, get your clothes there. So when you wake up, they are right there, and you put them on immediately. And you know what? Once you put your shoes on, there's no going back. Once you put your running shoes on, you basically climb 90% of that mountain, and the run is 90% done. Everything else is just going to be a consequence of that one behaviour. And that came back to the night before of remembering to put them out the night before. And so the oats are the same thing. Let's make it as simple as possible. So, in this pack here, you can add your milk to the pack. I've got measuring instructions on the back where you can add the milk to, so you don't need a measuring cup. Then I've got the seal on the top, so you can seal it in here. You don't need to put it into any other container. And then in the morning, when you open it up, we've got the second tear notch here. And so, the pouch turns into a bowl. And so you don't need to worry about doing the dishes. And then you can just rinse it and recycle it. So I was trying to take away all those types of friction that people might have to have a really healthy breakfast in the morning. We want to make it really fast, really easy, and there's no excuse not to have it.
Yeah, no, I love it, Dane. And as you were talking about the exercise thing, I've got a gym session later on today, and so I came home from a run this morning, and basically I showered or whatever, then put my gym clothes on and my gym shoe, and because to your point, I don't want to be an idiot at the end of the day who's been just hanging out in gym clothes all day and not go to the gym. Literally, this is the hardest thing for me, is to actually change out of my civvies, if you like, and get into the gym gear. But and I think the more people who, and this is someone who just loves training. So, if these are behaviors that I put in place because I already know that they're barriers, then it's almost so much more important for people who are just new in this space.
Yeah, and they can start off like that. We can start these habits. And so when you go through this process of starting an exercise habit, that might be the first thing that starts with, putting those shoes out or putting your exercise gear in the morning so that, you have some incentive to go to the gym. And so we start like that. It doesn't have to always be like that, but that's just the start of that habit. And then we can continue it on. And then ideally what would happen is that same person, as they built up that exercise tolerance, as they built up those habits, then they would join like a club or a group or a new exercise where they are around other people they are doing the same thing. And that is the first step that they can take to changing the immediate environment around them so they can become someone different. They can be someone different. And that means a change of environment for that person away from the people that they might have been with previously. They have created who they are, the types of people that they go out with and socialise. And you know what? When we go out and socialise, we're going to eat similar types of foods for other people eat that are with us. We're going to drink similar amounts of alcohol. We're going to do similar types of activities. So for people listening to this podcast, like if you're at a weight that you're not happy with or a weight that is unhealthy, then take a look at the people around you, because it's very likely that those people around you are going to be very similar. And if you stay in that situation, it's likely that you would be as well, because it's really hard to change when you're surrounded by similar people that you may not want to be like. And so therefore, joining the sports club, taking up a new sport is a really good way to meet those types of people that you want to become like. And then you'll find when you go out with them, you're going to have similar types of foods, drink similar types of things, and you're going to be like, more, like buddies, and you're going to have a support mechanism to make the change. I think it's a really important part of that change. So it might start with getting the gym gear on or putting your shoes out in the morning, but in 12 weeks' time, 24 weeks' time, in a year's time, hopefully it is you becoming a regular runner and joining a run club.
And also someone who eats breakfast, because I've got to say, introducing a breakfast product in a market where, in a social media environment where so many people would tend to intermittent fasting, it's not, or time restricted eating isn't probably at the height of what it was maybe a few years ago. But a lot of people still think one of the best things they can do is skip breakfast. And I for a couple of years back, maybe 2014 to 2016, that was me. And I'm just like overjoyed at the fact that breakfast is one of my 3 favorite meals.
Yeah, I love breakfast.
Yeah.
I love breakfast. I just, it's a fantastic way to start the day, and it sets me up well for the rest of the day. And as a nutritionist, working with clients that came in and would do a nutrition record for me or tell me about their regular diet, it was really always easy to see what the first fix is going to be, and it was breakfast. And I knew that if I could change their breakfast, or at least get them to have something for breakfast, I didn't care what it was. As long as we can start the habit of eating something for breakfast, and then we just build on it from that, then we can make a really big difference. And so it became really noticeable that the people who were willing to skip breakfast or have a poor breakfast, they struggled later on in the afternoon, like those midday snacks, and they would reach for energy-dense foods, which weren't filling, so they would eat more of them. And then when they did that, they felt terrible. So their self-confidence goes down. And then they go to eat other foods because they feel so bad, self-sabotage. So if we could make that one change, then it was always, right, let's start with breakfast. We do that, feel good. You've already achieved something for the day. It keeps you fuller for longer. And now we've set up a foundation which we can actually work on.
100%. And I'm sure you've seen these studies as well, is that when you do kickstart the day with a decent breakfast that sets up your energy levels, like you're actually more active through the day as well. So you're burning more calories. So your metabolism responds better to what you're doing. Whereas what I see in practice, and in studies, like it's like this downward slide in terms of energy and output. And we just want to be high energy individuals. Like weight loss and weight loss comes with that.
Yeah, and our body can go into starvation mode, and so when we're fasting and without even knowing it, we will be less active. And I don't mean just the intentional activity like exercise. I mean just like I'm standing there, while I'm doing this rather than sitting down. So those little micro movements, they add up a lot to a metabolic rate, a lot more than what people realise. And if we're in starvation mode, our body's going to try and decrease those types of calorie burn. And the other thing is, I think, with fasting, if we just stay on this topic for just a little bit longer, is that, there are some people who fast and they do it really well and they look fantastic, like, they are cut, they look amazing. Well, that might work for some people. Typically those people are very dedicated, very disciplined. They may have an athletic background and they can cope with something like fasting and do really well. For other types of people who might be listening to this podcast who are struggling with their weight or struggling with behaviour change, then that type of restrictive regime may not be, it's very unlikely to be the best thing for them long term. They might be able to stick to it for a short period of time, but come on, like how many things have you stuck to for a short period of time? It's not about chasing the next fad. It's really about becoming a different person and doing something that opens up your options, not narrows them.
Yeah. And Dane, you've said that a couple of times. And this is something which I'm really big on as well, as that changing your identity. Because changing your diet is not just changing your food, it's changing the person you are. And people might think that's a bit woo-woo, but it's 100%. That's actually where the rubber hits the road for a lot of people, because they've done a plan like mine. They've worked with people like you, and there are definitely people who have been successful while they're on it, quotes, and then they come off it, and that's the problem. And so you and I are very good at, and any nutrition practitioner will be able to tell you the things to eat, but it is absolutely that changing, that person has to decide that they need to sort of go down that road, and that's how you make it long term, right?
Absolutely. We're both smiling because we know how important that is. It is so key. And when I saw a post and you said about that recently, and I was so pleased to see that, because we're really aligned on that. I think it's really important, that people have to be someone different, and that's values and beliefs. It's not easy, but it can happen. But it takes real dedicated work to be able to change those values or beliefs, or at least manipulate them in the way that you can reframe them so that it helps you to be the person that you want to be, which we won't go into now because it's a lot of detail to do that. But, really think about being someone different, not trying to do something, trying to lose weight, or I'm trying to eat healthy. And so, if our listeners were to go out and, go and see some friends and they offered them some cake, what's their response? They say, I'm trying to be healthy. I'm trying to lose weight. Because one thing that you need to realize, listener, is that when you say that, someone else is listening to that. Someone really important is listening to what you say. And it's you. Everything you say, you are listening to, your brain is listening to. And when you say I'm trying to, your brain hears that. And that's short term. You're not being anyone different. You're trying to do something, trying to lose weight. So what would a healthy, lean person say if someone offers them some chocolate cake? Well, sure, they may accept and they may enjoy it. But if it wasn't a part of who they wanted to be, what are they going to say? They don't have to make excuses.
No, thank you. Yeah, 100%. Dane, we're running short on time, but there is, and I feel like we actually need to have a bigger discussion on the identity thing. So we should probably hook up again to have another podcast on that. However, what I am super interested in is what else is on the cards for Fuller for Longer? Have you got other products in the mix? And so can you just briefly let us know that? Yeah,
so this is my first product. It's Fuller Protein Overnight Oats. And I have lots of other ideas. So I've got one under work at the moment where everything I create will be for the same person. So that's the person who is busy, they're healthy, or active. I want to make sure that person can keep fuller for a longer period of time. So all the foods will be really low in added sugar, really hot, sort of hot whole foods, very filling, high in fiber. I love oats, so ideally oat-based as well. And as you know, I love breakfast. And so I've got some really cool ideas for breakfast that will be high in protein, high in fiber. These whole foods that will help people to be full for a long period of time. So one I'm working at the moment is a breakfast bar. So we all know 1 square meal. There's lots of things I don't like about 1 square meal. And I want to make a breakfast bar which can give people that same type of fullness, but not so many calories, and something that you could have every day. So when you're rushing out the door, you have a breakfast bar. I've got some other really cool ideas, which should be really delicious, real yummy, traditionally unhealthy foods, but they'll be super healthy, super filling, and they'll be breakfast foods as well.
I love it, Dane. And I love just the innovation behind your ideas. I love the reasons why you've created it. And I'm really looking forward to trying your oats this Saturday before we go out on our super long run.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, 100%. I know. And It is happening, and I am texting you after I do that on Instagram. So obviously we are let people know where they can find out more about Fuller for Longer, but also if there's the potential to work with you, like how they get in touch.
Yeah, so you can go to eatfullerfood.com. So the website is eat, E-A-T, Fuller, F-U-L-L-E-R, food, F-O-O-D.com. And there you can find out more about the breakfast option we have, which is our high-protein overnight oats. And then for all of our socials, it's simply just at Eat Fuller Food. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Go to at Eat Fuller Food, and from there you can just DM me. So Instagram's the best. Send me a DM, and if there's anything that you want to ask about or have any questions, then please just send me a message. And if you do buy the product, then please send me a message and let me know what you think. Like, I really want feedback. I want to know how it can change, what can be better, what can be different.
Awesome, Dane. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll catch up again soon, because I would love to do that other podcast if you are interested.
Amazing. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much, Mikki.
Alrighty, hopefully you really enjoyed that. I really did. I love just chatting with another nutritionist who is so super goal-oriented and really brings that athlete mindset to everything he does. I'm super interested in the behavioural change aspect as well. And as, of course, we talked about, we use a lot of the same principles to help people make these sustainable changes, which clearly has been super beneficial for Dane in his success with Eat Fuller Foods. And we have a couple of times actually used Fuller Food oats as our pre-run breakfast, and I've got to say they're just bloody delicious, and I highly recommend them. And they really sit well in the gut, which I really love. And there is dairy-free option available as well. All right, team, next week on the show, I speak to Dr. Glenn Davies about his success in the reversal of type 2 diabetes. Until then, though, you can catch me over on X, Threads, and Instagram at Mikki Williden, Facebook at Mikki Williden Nutrition, or head to my website, mikkywilliden.com. All right, guys, you have a great week. See you later.